Equal and opposites. Remember that the firmament, the quantum, exists as an inseparable reality of the two primary creative principles of intention and attention. These principles represent equal and opposite forces that co-create each other, and it is the relationship between them that allows for the development of more complex creations and events. As equal and opposite principles, we could also use other words to define and distinguish between them, words like in and out, light and dark, up and down, positive and negative, or male and female. And this last set of words is particularly good to use because when it comes to talking about creativity, there is nothing more fundamentally creative than what the words male and female suggest: sexual energy. The characteristics of these principles are now reflected in and through our bodies as male and female human beings, and of course all the other sexed species on Earth as well. Now, it doesn't matter where we might choose to put the descriptions of these principles, because the truth of the matter is that one sex exists only as a function of the other. Neither is greater or lesser, and together they represent the two sides of what we are as consciousness. As that consciousness, we are not sexed one way or the other, we are neutral, but the bodies we live through are sexed as either male or female. Consequently, it is possible for us to align ourselves more strongly with one principle than the other, no matter the sex of the body we are expressing through. It is this relationship that creates the environment for the variety of gender expressions we see in the world today. As it was original intention that created an outward expansion that manifests as a focus of attention to become a black hole and body of mass, we could perhaps say that intention is the female quality in principle and attention is the male. Together they have brought something into existence, but we could put it the other way around if we wanted. It doesn't matter that much. For the purposes of continuing this theme throughout the work, I choose the former. To understand how more complex things arose from otherwise identical particles, of how atoms, molecules, cells, stars and planets formed, we have to consider our creative options given the reality at the time. Remember that we cannot do anything more than what we know, and what we now know is that we are one and many of the same thing. The key to further development was in the potential of equal and opposite forces. Let's have a look at what I mean. The situation is similar to the previous, where we had the knowledge of being one firmament only, with the option to either remain the way we are, be neutral, disintegrate, go back, or to reproduce, go forward. Here, the same options apply. We could stay as we are in the moment, go back to a previous state, or go forward into the unknown. The first option is not an option for growth, so it is not an option for a developing universe. The second option, to remain as identical firmaments, would be to continue evermore as two of the same, neutral in terms of each other. That is not very interesting and also very limiting. How could anything develop further if we are simply aware of the fact that we are two of the same, but with no real way to connect or exchange with each other? If we want to grow, the third option, to go forward with a new idea, would be the only option. Therefore, the key was to create an opportunity for interaction between each point in some way. Looking at what we knew, knowledge gained through experience and available to us, we could see that the only other thing we knew at this stage was that of equal and opposite forces, of the male and female principles. Through applying this knowledge, all kinds of new things could and would start to happen. In short, the only thing required now to really get the universe going was sex. Remember that each firmament is an overlay of both the creative sexual principles. There is an outer and inner movement occurring simultaneously. To engage sexual relating between two separate firmaments then would be for the outer flow of one to meet with the inner flow of the other, and vice versa. Each would then touch and communicate with the other as an exchange of information, and a bond would form between them. To get a sense of this would be to imagine something like the image generated with magnetism and iron filings shown in figure J in this section. Energy moves back and forth between the two in an embrace of toing and froing, which, if you could see it, might appear as a kind of a jiggling and tumbling around each other at immense speed. This toing and froing exchange of energy from one point to the other is also the dynamic that now gives rise to the notion of distinct positive and negative charge. In this first simple relationship, however, the idea of a distinct charge was a relative phenomenon only, meaning that either point could only be considered positive or negative relative to the other at any given time. Further, the energy potential that arises as a function of 2 points relating in this way accurately explains another of the 4 fundamental forces of nature, the electromagnetic force. The relationship that is generated from this condition becomes a fundamental building block of creation. The best term to define it would perhaps be a pair bond. However, this term is already used in biology to describe the strong affinity that develops in some species between a pair consisting of a male and female, so the use of it in this context may be a little misleading. Nonetheless, the relationship of 2 points bonding through sexual attraction is such a fundamental and universal phenomenon that it is something that becomes reflected in the creations that come forth from it, hence the ultimate appearance of it in the natural creatures of the earth. It is a beautiful and powerful condition, but to avoid confusion, yet give it a name in this work, I will use a new term, a coupling. A coupling is a definite, measurable thing, a self-contained creative system and building block that is representative of the first element. In the next section, we will see how the coupling is a fundamental unit in creation that underpins the development of all atomic structure and the elements.